Hello, my name is Sarah Seifert, and I am a student in AML 2010 CRN 30569, and I want to talk about the effects of Bright disease on Emily Dickinson's poetry. I've said many times through the semester that I'm a nurse, and I think that gives me a different perception of some of the poetry and things that we see in the history of American literature and the writings of our famous poets when it comes to analyzing and dissecting their poetry. So in the research that I went and did on Emily Dickinson before I started any of my formal work on this presentation was to look back at her life. And I picked this poem as a way of sort of ascertaining my thesis. And the poem I picked was Undue Significance a Starving Man Attaches to Food. Far off he sighs, and therefore hopeless, and therefore good. Partaken, it relieves indeed, but proves us that spices fly in the receipt. It was the distance, was savory. So the reason I picked that poem was I was reading an Emily Dickinson expert named Vivian Pollock, and that she said that many of the personas of Dickinson's poetry had a thirsty, starving theme. And this kind of leads into the next topic that I'll talk about is the illnesses that Emily Dickinson struggled with. She's more known for, going into isolation later in her life and suffering a string of deaths of people very close to her. Um, and that seems to be why she dwelt on death so much, but I have a very different theory on that. So in the research I found that Emily Dickinson also suffered from a condition known as Bright's disease. Now, today, Bright's disease is recognized as a group of disorders under this big blanket umbrella term of chronic kidney disease. And chronic kidney disease can cause problems such as flank pain. And when you read about kidney disease and the pain that comes from your kidneys, it is always called like exquisite pain. It'll definitely bring you to your knees. Nausea, problems with blood sugar, fluid and electrolyte imbalances, cardiac dysfunction, and trouble thinking and concentrating relating to uremic buildup. And just a quick A&P, uremic buildup is a buildup of urea in your body, in your blood system. And what urea is just a leftover, waste product of your body's metabolism. There's a reason you get rid of it, and when you have kidney disease, your body just can't do it. So it leads to all of these problems from uremic buildup, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. So the big question I wanted to know was, could illness and loss have affected her poetry? Not only did she experience a string of losses, like one of the people she mourns loss for most of her life was someone that she called her master when she was very young, and a loss of her health. She was in and out of school quite a bit. If you read about her life, she was in and out of school with this illness, and I wonder if it didn't give her quite a different perception of life than it does most people. So we'll cover Bright's disease real quick. In chronic kidney disease, like I said, patients often experience a perpetual bad taste in their mouth, and that's just from the uremic buildup. And it's temporarily relieved by sips of water or eating ice. And problems with blood sugar in these patients, like, we said, kidneys go back to your, having trouble with your blood sugar. You often find kidney problems in people with diabetes. Problems with blood sugar can make you very hungry. And the buildup in your body, the effort your body has to go through to metabolize things to compensate for your kidneys not working makes you very hungry. But people who are unable, who have kidney problems, can't process that extra water, and there are foods such as, like, they have problems with salty foods and carbohydrates, simple carbohydrates and proteins, because your body can't get rid of them anymore. They're usually flushed out by the kidneys, and they contribute to further kidney damage. So when you go back to Miss Polak talking about her having a hungry, thirsty personas, I think it was so much more than just being hungry or thirsty for something outside of the body or for emotion. I think it was a way for her to express what she was feeling through her illness. So, is it even significant or worth mentioning that she had Bright's disease in the first place? I think so, because with Bright's disease, as with chronic kidney disease, when you get to a point where it's too far gone, um, you can only expect palliative care. And palliative care is the difference between putting ice on your broken leg, that's palliative, or curative. Curative is actually like setting the bone and putting it in a cast. That's curative as opposed to palliative. Palliative is just to make you comfortable. So, in an article from 1934, many years after Emily Dickinson, but this is really when Bright's disease went from a group of things covered under one umbrella to being understood as what the causes were. This was the third goal of care for a patient with Bright's disease, was just palliation towards the end. And Emily Dickinson may have had a very different perception because she knew what was going to take her life. She knew why she was going to die. She knew what was eventually going to kill her. And I think that's maybe why she mused on death so much, wondering what it was going to be like because she knew it was coming. Another interesting thing about why maybe did she muse on being hungry and thirsty and think about death so much, um, is dialysis brain. So as levels of uremia build up in the body, the individual experience uremic buildup may have changes in mood or behavior, altered thinking, forgetfulness, or changes in personality. And you'll see it's titled dialysis brain. A lot of people who have kidney problems, when they're getting ready to, they know their dialysis date is coming up, they'll get dialysis brain, they'll get forgetful. Somebody who's usually really pleasant may get really like ugly and nasty, and instead of being bright and bubbly, they're really dark and they're just not themselves. So in a study done in 1915, and it was published in the Journal of Abnormal Psychology, while not in Emily Dickinson's time, it did follow in the years to come when they began to understand that the body and the mind aren't separate. Um, Individuals with Bright's disease often had changes in the size, shape, or integrity of their brains upon an autopsy. And the individuals who were studied in this particular study, it was done by Johns Hopkins, either had pleasant or unpleasant delusions. The pleasant delusions were things just like being stuporous or feeling really close to God, or delusions of grandeur where it's like, hey, I'm, the running back for the St. Louis Rams, and it's wonderful. But all 11 subjects who had unpleasant delusions from this study had the feeling of being constrained, like they were tied down or locked up somewhere and couldn't get away, or they were extremely suspicious of people. Just somebody turning their head, making an off comment that they couldn't hear would make them suspicious that they were being talked about. And all of these people had the type of kidney disease that Emily Dickinson had. So this may have also attributed to why she later on went into isolation. So I wanted to share a little bit of my personal experience. I'm an RN now. I was an LPN at the beginning of the class. And I've dealt with a lot of dialysis patients in my time as a nurse. And these people are very aware of what's going on with them. They go through a grieving process when they lose their health. Some of them it's inherited diseases, and some of it's also choices that they've made. But they really don't feel like they have a whole lot of freedom. And sometimes the only freedom they have it can be in making bad choices. And I really feel like for Emily Dickinson, this was her way of expressing her freedom, or showing what was wrong with her. She could talk about eating, she could talk about the way that she felt, she could talk about wanting a drink of water, she could muse on what was killing her and what she knew was wrong with her through poetry. And you see that a lot with people in dialysis, sometimes they just want somebody to talk to because dialysis is temporary to add to the quality of their life. They're not going to be able to do it forever. And I think the significance of this work in particular, the one that I had picked, was it gives a look into the world of someone battling a disease. It gives the good, the bad, the ugly. Some of Emily Dickinson's poems are really, they're really interesting. Some are very dark. Some are, very intuitive, or they look deeper in the matter of something. But I think it's a good look into somebody's world that's going through that. Now, can we say that all of her work is strictly attributed to the musings of someone's under the effects of uremia? Absolutely not. But it does give some insight into her world and the world of others suffering from similar illnesses. And illnesses just could be, life limiting. I tell my patients all the time when they start worrying about, oh, I'm going to die. Well, honey, life is a terminal condition. Nobody's going to get out of life alive. So I think Emily Dickinson just came from a very, very different place with her work, that she knew what was gonna come and was gonna take her, and it gave her a different viewpoint than most of her peers. And this is my list of works cited. I've had a wonderful semester. Thank you for sitting and listening to me on my topic about Emily Dickinson, and I hope everyone has a wonderful semester coming up.